So I saw this news alert that the Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessel, she's the new Attorney General, dismissed all pending criminal cases tied to the Flint water crisis today, ending the prosecutions of 8 current and former officials accused of neglecting their duties and allowing Flint residents to drink tainted, dangerous water. When I saw that, I was absolutely horrified and stunned. So I'm going to read you a little bit more. I've spoken with a few sources, and I have a little bit more information that I want to share with you. The decision, announced years after the first charges were filed, left open the possibility for new prosecutions against some or all of the same people, but it was seen by some in Flint as a sign that their crisis was being forgotten. Quote, "My hearts break for the families that have lost loved ones," said Melissa Mays, a Flint resident and water activist. "This is not justice for them. It just seems like a political ploy," she added. "The only thing it tells me is our lives don't matter." And I've been speaking with Melissa through text messages. She's a leading Flint activist and resident. The prosecutors overseeing the case, Fadwa Hamoud and Kim Worthy, blamed missteps by the previous prosecution team for their decision. They said they would continue investigating the water crisis and noted they were, quote, "not precluded from refiling charges against the defendants or adding new charges and defendants." Among the officials whose charges were dropped, the former director of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, a state epidemiologist, a former Flint Public Works director, and emergency managers who had been appointed to oversee the city. Some defendants had faced charges as serious as involuntary manslaughter. Quote, legitimate criminal prosecutions require complete investigations. Upon assuming responsibility of this case, our team of career prosecutors and investigators had immediate and grave concerns about the investigative approach and legal theories. They're talking about from the previous prosecutor, special prosecutor. His name was Todd Flood. So, essentially, 15 people in total were charged in relation to the Flint water crisis. You have the head of the department, the head of the state Department of Health and Human Services, Nick Lyon, who was charged with involuntary manslaughter in relation to people dying of Legionella. You had the chief medical officer, Eden Wells. She was charged with involuntary manslaughter. And you had several other people charged. So I have to be extremely careful because as humbly as I could say it, I have very high up sources because I've been on the Flint water crisis story for 3 years. And there's some sources that I trust very much, and there's some sources that you take what they say with a grain of salt, but you take some of what they say and not all of it. So before I came live, I spoke with a source that I take what they say very seriously. They are somebody that is very, very high up in the state of Michigan and related and are very, very connected to the behind the scenes, what's going on with the water crisis. And I asked that person, this doesn't make sense to me. Why would you, even if there was missteps from the previous Attorney General's office and the previous special prosecutor, why would you drop all 8 of the remaining criminal cases just because there was missteps done? I can't go into every single detail because this person spoke to me in confidence. Obviously, I'm not going to say who this person is. You're going to have to trust me because, frankly, I trust my own gut, and this person has given me credible information in the past. So when I originally looked at this, like many of you watching right now, probably particularly Flint residents, I was very, very angry and did not understand. But the more I spoke with this person, who again is a very high-level source, I believe that the dismissal of these charges against the remaining 8 people that were charged is a situation where the new Attorney General and the new team there is choosing to lose a lot of battles in order to win the overall war. And what I mean by that is I believe they dropped these charges because in doing so, it would help them to get bigger fish than the individuals whose charges they dismissed. That is what I believe from the conversation I just had. That is not going to go over well with the residents of Flint, and I understand why. Because on the surface, it looks like the Attorney General of Michigan, the new Attorney General, her name is Dana Nessel, essentially just tossed out all of the charges against the very people who were behind covering up the Flint water crisis. I believe, based on the conversation I just had from a source who has not led me wrong to this point, and a person I trust, that the reason they dropped these charges is because in doing so, it will allow them to go after bigger fish. I believe bigger fish, meaning potentially Governor Rick Snyder and potentially people in his administration. The biggest fish that they have gone after so far, no, James, Dana is not my source. The Attorney General is not my source. The biggest fish so far was Nick Lyon, who was charged with involuntary manslaughter and was the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. That was the highest level official that was charged. But that was not somebody in Governor Snyder's immediate office or immediate. It was a cabinet member, but it wasn't somebody in his inside circle, if you know what I mean. I believe that, again, I'm not a lawyer, but based on the conversation I had with this person, who, again, is somebody that every single thing they have told me has ended up being true so far. So I could only go by what they have told me so far has been proven true. That evidence, they are now free because they are dropping these charges. They might be free now to use evidence that they have recently discovered that they were not free to use before. So I will give you exactly what I was told. And again, I'm not going to get into who I spoke with, but I was told that there are other people in play and there might be some additional evidence that could be used that wasn't used before. And I was told to, quote unquote, read in between the lines. This person did not want to tell me who they're going after. I'm only giving you my opinion. This is not what I was told. This is not what, I don't have anything other than my opinion and speculation and just based on knowing how politics works, because with criminal prosecutions, there's a lot of politics involved. I think they're going after former Governor Rick Snyder. I believe some of the plea deals that they agreed to in the first place, because they did agree to a lot of plea deals, I believe some of those plea deals that they agreed to were because those people gave them information higher up. Possibly on Rick Snyder's role in the Flint water crisis, possibly on some of his lieutenants' role in the Flint water crisis. This is common practice. This is common practice in criminal prosecutions. You start with the little fish, you dangle, a plea deal or immunity or whatever, so that they'll give you the bigger fish that you really want. I believe, I'm not a lawyer, but I have spoken with a lawyer before I went live that, if you're dropping all these cases, doesn't it kind of hand the defense a dream scenario where even if you go after bigger fish and then charge them, couldn't the defense say, They already dropped all the criminal charges, and now they're charging new people. This team has no idea what it's doing. It's chaos. Wouldn't it hurt the credibility of the prosecution team? That is, to me, legitimate. That's a legitimate concern. So the bottom line is this. I think the residents of Flint, and at this point I've probably interviewed hundreds of residents in Flint, me saying, I'm not a Flint resident and I was not poisoned, but me saying that based on my sources, I have reason to believe that they are dropping these charges in order to go after the biggest fish possible. I don't know if that is going to bring comfort to the residents of Flint, and I can't honestly blame them. Somebody asked, do I believe what I was told? I do believe what I was told. I do believe what I was told. I believe it because this is a new administration. From what I have gathered from this new administration, they do want justice for Flint, whereas obviously the last one didn't want justice for Flint because they were part of the reason Flint was poisoned in the first place, a huge reason. And I think that the new Attorney General, you have to remember, the new Attorney General and the new governor, they were handed a previous prosecution from a previous Attorney General and previous prosecutors. You also have to remember that they apparently found recently a lot of documents that were not previously disclosed. They asked several times for a delay to the actual trials that were about to happen for the Department of Health and Human Services head, Nick Lyon, and other people. But what I think, based on what who I spoke to, based on the fact that they have not let me down, as far as they have not given me information that did not pan out until now. I believe that for whatever reason, the Attorney General's office decided that losing these battles and just tossing them out to laser focus on bigger fish is what we need to do. And I don't believe they would have done this unless they have firm evidence and concrete evidence against these bigger fish. And when I say bigger fish, I believe the bigger fish they're talking about is the governor. It's Rick Snyder and people extremely close to him in his office. That's what I believe. And I've reported this in the past, but about 2 years ago, I had a very high up source very close to the prosecution team. That's all I'll say. I had a very high up source that knew what was going on behind the scenes in the prosecution team. And that high up source had told me, flat out, that there was evidence, that the prosecutors on that prosecution team had evidence to charge the governor with something. It could have been involuntary manslaughter, it could have been criminal negligence while in office. And they were stopped by the then Republican Attorney General Bill Schuette, who did not want to charge Governor Snyder because the Attorney General was running for governor, and you probably wouldn't have a chance of getting that dirty Republican money if you indict the current governor, Rick Snyder. So, I understand why people watching me right now would say, would think I'm being naive, or would look at the headline of the story and think, oh, these people are going to get away with it, and corruption. All I can tell you is I've lived this. I have breathed this since 2016. I have probably spoken with, at this point, hundreds of Flint residents. I have spoken with local politicians. I have spoken with local activists. I have spoken with lawyers. I have spoken with doctors. I know enough of the players involved, and I know enough of how the politics are involved. I think that, am I happy that they have dropped these charges? No. But do I think them dropping the charges is the end game of this? I don't. I think that this is a case where they are choosing to lose several battles in order to win the war. And I personally think if you gave Flint residents a choice, would you rather us go to trial with these people and use our resources on these people that we just dismissed the charges, or bring charges against Governor Rick Snyder, I'm pretty sure the large majority would say the latter, Governor Rick Snyder. But I don't pretend to know what the people of Flint are feeling on this day when you see a headline that the Attorney General's office has dropped all of the criminal charges against the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services head who was charged with involuntary manslaughter, 2 emergency managers that were involved with the switch to the Flint River, the chief medical officer of the state, all people that it has been demonstrated helped to cover this up and did not act swiftly as residents were complaining of rashes, hair loss, nosebleeds. But I do believe, I trust my gut. My gut has not taken me to the wrong, my gut has not failed me yet as far as the Flint water crisis, so I'm going to continue sticking with my gut. I believe that, I don't want to say this was the right thing to do, but I understand why they did it based on the source that I spoke with. I think there is a greater and larger end game in mind, and that is why I believe they dropped these charges. So, that's it. I think that's a hard pill for Flint residents to swallow today. I also think, frankly, it was a gigantic conflict of interest in the first place that the previous Attorney General, Bill Schuette, who's a Republican, was also running for governor. So, of course, the Republican Attorney General is not going to bring charges against the sitting Republican governor if that Republican Attorney General wants to be the next governor. If the Republican Attorney General, Bill Schuette, who was running for governor of Michigan, had brought charges against Governor Rick Snyder or people close to him, he was not going to have a chance in the election because he would have never gotten a dime from the bigwigs in the Republican Party who fund their elections. That is why I believe they never brought charges against Governor Rick Snyder or anyone close to him, even though there was evidence. And my sources tell me there is evidence. There is evidence that could be used to go after bigger fish. So you either trust me or you don't. I can understand if you don't. But I think actions speak louder than words. And I hope you know I would not be speaking like this and I would not be saying the things I'm saying today if I did not absolutely trust where I'm getting it from. I am not somebody who just gossips.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.